All right, hello everyone. Hopefully you all are doing well. We're still learning, moving forward. A lot of you doing really well. Last week I saw a lot of success. And if you still need help, remember to go back over the video or reach out, join my office hours. So we're moving on. We're gonna start learning about different transformations. And so you're going to see that word often. You're going to see different types. This is going to be a good opportunity to take out paper, take down notes, pause the video with these definitions. I really hope some of you are taking notes, or all of you, just so that you have these for next year. You're going to go back to this geometry unit as well and continue learning. So you want to make sure you have these for next year as well. And for our end of the unit assessment, which will be coming up in a couple weeks. So let's get started. If you have graph paper, this is going to be a really important next couple of lessons to have graph paper. If you don't, that's okay, but it is helpful. So you might want to try to get you a couple pieces or a pack for these next couple lessons. So I'm going to go over some notes. Remember, pause the video. It's what's great about video lessons is that you can pause them, stop them, take notes, go back, listen to it again. Do that as much as you need to for me explaining all of these different vocabulary words or examples, okay? So we're going to get started. As you can see in this picture, it's going to be important for you to look at a visual and notice what's going on. So in this picture above here, I see two triangles. I see a whole bunch of points that are named, and we learned that in lesson 1, how to name points. And we'll talk about what this apostrophe means with the letter C. So I just want you to recognize there's two triangles here, and from the looks of it, they look like the same size, okay? So we're going to get into the notes. A transformation is an operation that maps an original figure, which is called the pre-image. So you're going to want to write that down. An original figure is called the pre-image, onto a new figure, which is called the image. So if you think about what pre means, pre kind of means prior or before. So before we do a transformation, that pre-image is the original, and then when we do a transformation, it creates the image. So on the graph, not to the left, above, okay, triangle ABC is the pre-image. So up here, this triangle is the pre-image or the original figure, and triangle A prime, B prime, C prime. And I'm saying prime, and this is written over here for you to remember. When you have that little apostrophe, we're going to read that as prime. So it's just used to represent a new triangle. So instead of saying this is point A, well, this point right here is in relation to that, but we're not going to call it A because it's a different point. So we're going to call it A prime. Okay, that'll be important moving forward. We're going to compare 2 points that have the same letter. So A goes to A prime, B translates to a B prime, excuse me, and then so on for C. Okay. All right, let's keep looking on here. A transformation can change the position. So this is important to understand what a transformation is. It can change that position, the orientation, and or size of a figure. And not necessarily all three of those. So in this picture above, we saw that the size of these two triangles didn't change. So it can change the position, orientation, or the size. So you might want to stop the video, go back, listen to this part one more time, take notes before moving forward. All right, so let's move forward. You're going to want to write rigid motion. What is a rigid motion? So when a transformation keeps the size and shape of a figure, so when the size doesn't change and the shape doesn't change, when that happens, all of the corresponding sides and angles of the pre-image and image are congruent, and we know that congruent means equal or the same. Okay, so what are some examples of rigid motion? We're going to have some translations. Reflections. And rotations. And this is going to be important for you to remember these 3 types of rigid motions moving forward. So it is beneficial for you to pause the video, write down those 3 types. And then today we're going to focus just on translations, and then next week we'll move on to reflections. Okay, so moving on to what I said we were going to focus on this week is just translations. So translation is when a figure is vertically or horizontally slid. So when you vertically or horizontally slide a figure, so basically just moving a figure or shape. So as you can see in this picture, the triangle ABC on this left side, let me see if I can highlight this. So ABC, you can see this arrow is B. If we look at just B, B goes from this point right here, and then we see B prime over here. So it slid to the right, and we can count how many units, and then it slid down. So when we slide or move a figure in these points, but it keeps the size and shape, remember it's important that the size and shape stay the same, stay congruent. So when we're moving shapes, we can't move a triangle and then all of a sudden it becomes a bigger triangle. So how do we write this notation? Again, you're going to want to pause the video here because this is going to be important how to write this notation. So a coordinate that we have usually as XY, we've known that from before. So this point B right here, we can name that a specific number. I think it's 1, 2, 3, -3, 4. So it goes from just a regular coordinate, and then we are doing some adding or subtracting of that point. So we'll take X, wherever X is, and we're going to add a number to it so it moves. And then the Y coordinate, we're going to add a number to it so it moves. And I'm just using H and K to represent as a variable whatever I'm adding or subtracting from that point. Now, if you're a little confused, it's okay. Write this down. I'm going to go over some examples, and when you see the examples, it'll make a little bit more sense. So H represents the horizontal shift. And so if you have some trouble remembering which one's horizontal and vertical, horizontal, think about the horizon. On the sun, it goes left and right. So when you look at the horizon, it goes left and right. And then I always give a basketball example for vertical. So K represents the vertical. Any of you don't play basketball, or some of you that, think you play basketball, just kidding. Vertical is when they check to see how high you can jump. And for me, my vertical is not very great, but vertical represents how are you moving a shape up and down. Okay, so stop the video, take notes, write that part down, and then we'll move on to examples. Okay, let's dive into an example. Like I said, it's going to be important or helpful if you have graph paper. If you don't, it's okay, but it is helpful to get some. So take a piece of graph paper out if you have it. Let's read the directions at the top. Important to read the directions. Graph and label each figure. So we know we're going to have 2 figures or 2 shapes here. And its image under the given translation. So we're going to have a pre-image, and then we're going to have the image after we do the translation. Identify the coordinates of that image. So as you can see down here, we need to list the coordinates of these new points, Q prime, R prime, S prime, and T prime. Before we can do that, we need to plot the vertical QRST with these vertices or these points, corners. So Q, -6, -1. So here's a little bit of a review on plotting points. When you have a coordinate, X comes first, then Y. So -6, -1 is for Q. In order to plot that, remember, start at the origin, which is in the middle, and we're going to go to the left 6 units because it's negative. So we'll go back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is -6. And then the second unit tells you, so the first one tells you whether you go left or right. This Y coordinate tells you how much you go up or down. And since this is negative, we know we have to go down. So we go back 6 and then down 1 space, which will be right here. And it's going to be important that you label your points with this lesson. So that's Q. All right, let's keep going. R is negative 3, 1. So from the origin again, we're going to go back 3. So 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to go up 1 since that's a positive 1. So that's R, and I'm going to connect them as I go because we're making a shape, remember? We're making a rectangle. It even tells you that up in the directions. All right, and the next one is S, which is 1, negative 5. So from the origin, we go to the right 1, and then we're going to go down 5 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if it helps you to label these intervals on the x-axis and y-axis, you can go ahead and mark them and label them the numbers, so it might be a little bit easier. So this is S. Remember to label it, connect. Well, that was pretty straight. Snaps for me. Okay. I heard like 1. Thank you. T is negative 2, negative 7. So negative 2 and then down 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And when you do this, you should be observant to make sure that your points actually create a rectangle here, because the direction does say rectangle. Okay, so once you have these 4 points, you just created the rectangle. Now, the next thing to look at is what is the translation they give you. So what does this mean over here? Let's just first start with this part, x plus 5. What do you think that means? You take x and you add 5 to it. So what is our x for q? What was our x for q? Well, it was negative 6, right? These are all of our x coordinates on the right side. So this is basically a rule for what you do with your x values. I'm going to add 5 to them. So q, from where q was at negative 6, negative 1. So if I add 5 to negative 6, I'm going to erase, well, let's see here. I'll make a little bit of space so I can write this down. If I had negative 6 and I'm adding 5 to it, I get negative 1. So that becomes my new point for q prime. So I took negative 6 and I added the 5 to that x value and I got negative 1. So q goes from where it was to now q prime has an x value of negative 1. Okay, let's do all the x values for these, and then we'll go and find the y values. So what am I going to do for all of these new x values? I'm going to do what the rule says. The rule says, remember to add 5. So what's the next x value? Negative 3. So if I do negative 3 and I add 5, I'll get a positive 2. And that was for r, so r prime will have an x value of 2. Okay, so each time you can get your calculator out if that's helpful, take it and add 5. So let's just keep going for this one. S has a value of 1. If I add 5 to that, now S prime becomes 6, because 1 plus 5 is 6. And then the last x value is negative 2. So if I do negative 2 plus 5, it becomes a positive 3. All right, so now that we use the x value, and well, the rule for the x coordinates, we're going to look at the y rule. So what does the y say? It says the translation says to add 7 to all of your y values. So if you want to write these down, here are my y values. You can use a highlighter to do what I'm doing, or you can underline them as you work through it. So you guessed it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add 7 now to all of these numbers in green. So for q, just make sure you put it with the correct point. So q prime now, from q to q prime, it goes negative 1 plus 7, because that's what the rule tells me to do. So negative 1 plus 7 is 6. Okay, and then r, the translation, I'm going to add 7 to this y value, and I get 8. And then S goes from having a y value of negative 5. The rule tells me to add 7, so I'm at 2. Negative 5 plus 7 is a positive 2. And then my last y value here is negative 7. So if I do negative 7 plus 7, that will be 0. So now I have all my new coordinates, but I'm going to plot them to make sure it keeps the same size and shape. Remember that we have to preserve that. So let me go ahead and change this color here to blue. So Q prime, let's plot it, negative 6, 1. So if I go back negative 6 and I go up 1, up 6, I'm sorry, it says negative 6, 1. So go back 1, up 6. And I think I went up 1 too many spots. So let me start over. Negative 1, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'm going to label it. That was Q prime, so I'm going to put Q with a little apostrophe, prime. Okay, and then let's plot R prime, so 2, 8. Starting from the origin, go over 2 to the right, and then up 8. And label that R prime. And then remember connecting as you do these, right? So far, so good. Looks pretty similar. S prime is 6, 2, so go from the origin over 6 and up 2. And that's S prime connected with a straight line. And then last one is T prime, and we see down here it says 3, 0. So remember, over 3, up 0. Say that in your head if it's helpful. And then label that T prime. Now, if you plotted a point and it didn't give you a shape that looked the same, then you just want to go and check your work that you did with the rule or how you're plotting your points. So as you can see here, the shape remained the same size and shape. It was just moved over 5 units and up 7. So it also might be helpful when you're looking at these rules. Let me see. When you're looking at these rules over here, the rule that it gives you, to say in your head, what do you need to do? Well, it says x plus 5, so you're going to move to the right 5. I'm getting cut off here. I guess I'm writing too much on this page. Stay with me, okay? Move to the right 5, and then up 7, because they're both adding. So we're going to go to the right and up. So then you could check every point to see if you did that right. Q, if you move 5 units to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and up 7, do you land on where you had the point? So you could check and double check all of your work on this one. All right, I know that was long. I'm going to do another example. When I do the next page, if you want to pause it and try it by yourself, you can do that. I'm just doing one more example, so stay with me. It'll be very helpful for the assignment. All right, like I said, pause the video now if you want to try this on your own. Remember, the first step is you need to actually plot what the pre-image is in order to then plot the image, okay? So a couple things here. This says it's a triangle, CDE, so we're going to make this triangle CDE. So I need to plot all 3 of these points. So for point C, it says 2, negative 1. So I'm going to go over 2, down 1. And then label that C. I think I'm going to move the C. Let me put it on top. Okay, and then it says for point D, 7, negative 4. So go over 7 and down 4. And that's D. And then E. So E is 4, negative 6. Go over 4 and then down 6. And label it E. So that's step 1. Plot the points to make the first image, the pre-image, the original image. Remember all that vocabulary. If you need to go back to the first slide, do that. All right, and now what you want to kind of do is you want to start looking at this rule and being able to tell yourself out loud or in your head, what is it wanting you to do? Remember a translation? What does a translation mean? If you can answer that right now, that's great. If you can't, go back and read what a translation is. What does a translation do to a shape? It moves it, right? Vertically or horizontally. So it kind of slides the points or the shapes. So for our X value, let's see if we can just do this by, moving the points. So what is it telling you to do to the X's? It's telling you to take away 3, right? So from point C, if I'm taking away 3 on the X's, it is here. So if I take away 3, where does it go? Well, it goes back 3. 1, 2, 3. And then what does it tell you to do with the Y? So the Y says to add 8, right? So if we go back 3, then what do we need to do? Are we going to go up or down 8? If it says add 3. We're going to go up 8. So back 3 and then up 8 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's where C is going to slide to. So this is going to become C prime. So basically when you have a negative for the x's, what is it doing? It's telling you to go to the left 3. If it's positive, you're going to go to the right. For the y value, if it says plus, you're going to go up. If it says negative, you're going to go down. Could we do what we did in the last slide? Absolutely. So let me show you the work now, how we got that point. You could take the point 2, -1, and that was C. In order to see what C prime is, what do you do to this x value? Well, it says you take away 3. What's 2 minus 3? -1. What does it tell you to do to the y's? Add 8. So this y value of -1, if you add 8, it becomes 7. So let's see if this point matches what we just did. -1, 7. If you go back 1 and up 7, you'll see how you landed on that same point. So there's a couple different ways that you could go about moving these figures. Show the work or go ahead and really understand what the rule is telling you to do so. All right, let's do the same thing for E. E says to go to the left 3, just like we did with this C. So for E, we're going to go to the left 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to go up 8 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Put a point and label it our new label, which is going to be E prime. So that's where E moved to, translated to. And then D is the last one. So D, we're going to do the same thing. Back 3, and then up 8. Okay, put a point, label it D prime because D went from D to D prime. And then remember to draw your lines to create your shape. And then make sure that you can visualize and see that it's the same size and shape. And now we just need to label what the points are. C prime, I guess I could have did this as I was plotting, but C prime becomes -1, 7. D prime is 4, 4. And then E prime is 1, 2. So if you need any help, make sure you watch the video again and join my office hours on Monday and Thursday at 12. This is going to be a good video to stop, go back, watch it again, ask questions, take notes, get graph paper out, all that good stuff. So you got it. Make sure you look for the Google form for the assignment for the week and have it turned in by Friday. Have a great week.